Hello and good morning. It's so good to see everyone again. Today's presentation is going to be a little bit different. It was videoed live. I had been asked to present as a Scottish immigrant. And so I presented my program and it was shot live. So there's all the noises and everything, and my person running the camera had a little problem in the middle, but it's okay, we figured it out. And there was always the nervousness of a live audience. So with that, let me tell you my method of doing these programs. I perform in first person. That means I talk as if I was in the time. I try to maintain that, and I also try to maintain a timeline that I was born in 1705. This helps because I cannot be a 20-year-old anything. I'm older now, and so I have to maintain somewhat of a timeline and to keep everything in history in order, or sort of in order. I don't like war, and I never have, and so when I speak of war and battles, I'm speaking as the woman that I am, just seeing it as something to upset the status quo of the year, of the life of the day. But speaking in first person also gives me the advantage of seeing people's reaction to the reality of history. I'm not talking dates and locations and time so much. So there we have it. Born in Emigrant, Scotland in 1705, survived the battles of Culloden, Great Meadow, Caroline, where I lost my dear husband, and on to Johnson Hall, and now 1776. I have fought the good fight. My race is run. The New Jersey 3rd has taken siege of Johnson Hall. It's an interesting way to do, but I find that I touch many people's hearts and minds and bring history into a very real moment. So I thank you so much for that. So please enjoy and forgive my little bumps and errors. Thank you. If you are very good at your pluses and minuses, that makes me 71 years old. I've seen some things, done some things, so I'm going to tell you my whole story. I'm going to tell you my whole story right here, right now. So I'm a Cameron. I was born in Scotland. When I was born, my mother, her body just couldn't handle it very well, and she was sick in bed. So my whole time growing up, I took care of my mother. From the time that I was big enough to bring her a cup, I was helping my mother, and I did that all my life. Why, by George, I milked the cows, I made the cheese, I made the butter, I harvested the eggs, I did it all. I was my father's helper. Oh, how I loved my father. But there I was at home in our cottage all the time. I was very fortunate. My father was scribe, so he could read and write. And one day I saw him coming down the alley towards home, and he had a young man with him. Whoa. I'd lived at home all my life, and there I was, almost 30 years old, and well, this was my first opportunity, and he was beautiful. My father was bringing me home a present, I was sure. Well, I met him, and his name was John, and we fell in love. And we were married, but I could never leave my father's house, so John moved right in also. And I continued to take care of my mother. One day, they came in from doing whatever they were doing and said, there's some trouble and we have to deal with it. Our chief has asked everyone to come to Glenfinnan to meet with Bonnie Prince Charles. He's supposed to change Scotland back to the way it was supposed to be. Well, I never thought any of this was a good idea. We were doing just fine how we were doing. But no, the chief was told everybody had to come out. And he said, by George, everyone will. Now the chief of the Camerons, his name was the Lochiel, the gentle Lochiel. Anytime someone's called the gentle anything, you usually know it's not so true. He was very firm, but he was fair, and he insisted we all go. Well, obviously, I could not. I had to take care of my mother. So I stayed back, and my husband and my father, they went. And when they came back, they told me that we were going to war. We were all going to be fighting against England. Us little Highlanders against all of England, but Bonnie Prince Charlie, he was going to lead all of us to absolute freedom, to bring the real and true Catholic king back to Scotland. At that time, believe it or not, the King of England couldn't speak English. He could only speak German. That's why he was called German George. And so they wanted to bring back the rightful crown to Scotland. And I didn't think any of this was a good idea. Well, the men went off under protest, absolutely. Absolutely, war is not good. Never, ever a good choice. But I stayed home, and my husband came back with carrying my father. He was gone about a month. He came back carrying my father and said, all is lost. All is lost. There's nothing for us anymore. And he laid my father down next to my mother, and he died, and so did she, just like that. Sometimes people know, don't they? They just know that this is the end. And so my husband and I looked at each other. Now, I'd never been anywhere. And he said, they're going to make us leave. We're not going to be able to stay here. We're going to have to leave. But I heard that they were drumming for volunteers down in Glasgow. Drumming for volunteers to come to America. Come to America. One day you'll own land in America. And he said, I've always wanted to grow fruit trees. I've always wanted to, so let's do that. So we opened up all the gates. We opened up the doors to the cottage. We took what we could carry, and we left. We left the cow. That cow I've known forever, quite intimately. And I've known her calves. I've known all of these chickens intimately. Leaving everything I ever knew was going to be something, but I'm also alone with my husband for the first time ever. I know I was older, because this was in 1746. I can't remember, I was probably 30 or 40 something at that point. We never had children. So we boarded a ship, and we went on the ship. And by the way, it was terrible. It was terrible. There wasn't food. We didn't have anything hot, because getting a fire going when the boat was rolling around and there were storms, and so we were drinking cold tea. Tea just sort of soaked in water. It was a little bit salty. It was not very pleasant. Some hard biscuits. After 3 weeks, we finally get there, and there were people that actually died on the ship. There were women that had babies that didn't live on the ship. And they just pitch them overboard like nobody's business. This is no way to travel, we thought, but it's what we had to do. So we get to America, and I can see it, and there it is. Do you know what the first thing I saw and said? Oh my, what do they do with all those trees? I come from a land without trees. Scotland had been deforested for years. What do you build with? You build with wood, you heat with wood, you heat with sod. That's why they cooked with sod so much, or heated with sod. Is because, the trees take a while to grow themselves back. So I see all these trees, and how are you going to manage that? Let's get off this boat. There's no getting off the boat. I bet y'all are wondering about that. It was free. It was free to go to America. They're looking for people to work. But you can't get off the boat until somebody buys you. Did everybody hear what I just said? Right. You cannot get off the boat until somebody buys you off. There were planters, plantation owners. We landed outside of Williamsburg. And there were people on the dock waiting to come on board. And they'd come on board, these men, and they'd look at all the people on board. Some old men didn't get picked right off. Some old women were just left. but the best of us were picked off. We were picked off by Colonel Joshua Fry. I don't know what became of the other people, but I do know that I did have it very well. Colonel Fry owned a plantation in Virginia, and he took us in. I worked in the house, my husband worked in the fields, but that's what he liked. He wanted to be an arborist, so he was getting closer. And we developed a relationship with our owner, Colonel Fry. We did okay, and after 7 years of indenture with him, we were given title to 50 acres of land. We had to find it. It doesn't come easy, by the way, but we were each given a whole outfit of clothing, shoes, stockings, for me a shift, a petticoat, apron, corset, gown, and cap. And that was for me, and my husband got a waistcoated coat, breeches, a shirt, stockings, and shoes, and 50 acres, and we were told we could leave. Well, we didn't have any money, so we stayed on and worked for money at that point. We were no longer owned, but we were working for trade, so that we could get an axe, and we could get a shovel, and we could get a barrel. And so we started collecting all of these things, and then we took off to find our land. Well, we did. We settled in the western part of Virginia, and then we got a message several years later, and this was maybe 64, I lost track of time after all this time. About 1764, a runner came to our little farm and said, you need to go to Fort Cumberland. Or actually, it was called Wills Creek at that point, but Fort Cumberland, that's in Maryland. Now, it wasn't Maryland then. But we were told to go to Fort Cumberland and join Colonel Fry because they were on an expedition to the Three Rivers. Does anybody around here know where that could be? So we went and we met up with Colonel Fry, and it was just like old friends, and my husband was a scribe still, he knew how to write, just like my father, and so Colonel Fry pulled him on with him. You stay right with me. Well, in the preparations to go off, he fell off his horse got spooked up, and he was mortally injured. He died. Well, now all these people are coming from all over the place to join in, to go up to Three Rivers to quell the French movement. And now what are they going to do? Well, it just so happens there was a young man there that knew the area. His name was George Washington. He was a lieutenant at the time. He gained his lieutenancy by doing survey work with none other than Joshua Fry and Peter Jefferson. Peter Jefferson, that's Thomas Jefferson's father. And in 1753, George Washington had tracked up right through Beaufort County. Actually, right by where my house is going to be one day. And came up, and so they knew that George Washington knew the area. That's his only claim. He didn't know how to command troops. He didn't know how to move an army. And that's why there were days when he would make, maybe 25 requests to handle the baggage. By the way, I was baggage. Women are considered part of the baggage and to be carried along. And we're not wanted, but needed. Camp followers, and that's what I did become, as a camp follower. Camp followers are not people of ill repute, they're wives. You can't stay with the army unless you're married. I came to find out that if my husband would have been killed, I'd have to marry somebody else very quickly, or else I would have to go somewhere else. That's a tough pill to swallow now, isn't it? Well, we managed with George Washington all the time, warning our friend, Mr. Fry, but we survived. We made it through the Fort Necessity debacle, and we came home. That's over with, it's done, we don't have to do that anymore. Well, years go by, and we get called out again. But there's one thing that I didn't tell you all. Before we could get on the ship to America, each woman, man, and child had to swear their fealty to that rapscallion German king. we had to swear that no matter what, we would stand behind the king and fight for the King of England. Bitter pill to swallow. I'm American now. I own land with my husband. We have neighbors. We have friends. We have community. And all of a sudden, we are forced to just, no, there's no choice. We have to fight for the English. I can't even tell you. Where do you choose between honor? Your honor is your word, and the reality of you're an American. This is kind of even a contemporary question, isn't it? The lessons of history, once learned, will be remembered. I have trouble remembering some things. But so we had to fight one more time. This time we're fighting with people we know, with the 42nd Highlanders. And so there we were on our way up to Fort William Henry. That's a long way from Virginia, by the way. We had to go up to Fort William Henry, and there we had to join up with the rest of the 42nd Highlanders. From Fort William, all the men were packed up onto longboats and up Lake George. Lake George was completely covered with boats. As far as you could see, there was longboats and short boats and rowboats, all filled with men. Us women, the baggage had to stay behind in the ruins of Fort William Henry. What a time. Whither thou goest, I will go. Whereas thou liest down, I will lie down. How are you going to do that when you're off on a boat? So there we were waiting. So while sitting and waiting, there was a young woman with her children all around her. She was devastated. She had 4 little children. And so I said, well, let me help her. So I sat down and I was helping her and soothing her. They'll be back. Everything will be fine. Let's do stuff with the children. And I got to soothe her because what I didn't know is she ran into, her husband was part of a battle on the way up there. And her children had to clean on the battlefield. When I say clean on the battlefield, do you know what I'm talking about? That's when the guns stop shooting and the cannons stop and all the fighting troops are gone. The women are sent out onto the battlefield. Remember, we're just baggage. We're sent out onto the battlefield to retrieve anything we possibly can. Got a pair of shoes, that was pretty nice. But still, she was devastated. And you can only imagine having your little children crawling around dead bodies and gore and gruesome. These are us. These are our strong women that went onto these battlefields with their babies. Remember this. We are made out of some tough stuff. So anyway, I was soothing her and we waited. 3 days later, I started to see boats coming up and we're waiting. I intended to just go and look for him. I can walk, got all that way. But because I was attached to the army, I couldn't just walk away. And I didn't have a husband, and so they sent me off. I went off to the Albany Hospital and I served as a nurse with Charlotte Brown. And then later on, I went up to live on the plantation of Sir William Johnson up in New York State. And that's where I lived until now, and here we are, 1776. What will become of me now? What will become of me? So, just, life has been a hard time, and thank goodness I had no children. My time with my husband was wonderfully spent, and I enjoyed it. So now I'm alone, and whatever becomes of me will be what it is. John Anderson, my Joe John, come in as he gave by, and we will take a sheep's head and bake it in a pie. We'll bake it in a pie, John, and cut it in a pan. John Anderson, my Joe John, come in as he gave by. John Anderson, my Joe John, when we were first acquainted, your locks were like the ravens, your bonny brow was bright, but now your brow is bad, John. But hand in hand we'll go, and we'll sleep together at the foot, John Anderson, my Joe. And that was it. And that was it. A life well lived and unlearned, and many experiences to carry forth and share with all of you. I thank you. So now that you've seen this program, I want to thank you for watching and thank you for your patience. Be sure to like if you did, subscribe if you will. It might help me someday, and I thank you so much for your time.
Things passed on.